You know what one of the biggest traps people fall into when dating? Being nice. And before you start thinking, wait, isn't being nice a good thing? Let me be clear. It's not about being rude, cold, or dismissive. It's about understanding that being overly nice is often just another way of seeking validation. And the moment you start looking for validation, you lose power in any relationship. Think about it. How many times have you been overly accommodating, always saying yes when you really wanted to say no? How often have you laughed at a joke that wasn't funny, agreed with an opinion you didn't fully believe in, or bent over backward just to make someone like you? This isn't kindness. This is fear. Fear that if you don't please him, he'll lose interest. But here's the truth. The more you chase someone's approval, the less they value yours. Attraction isn't built through being easy, agreeable, or always available. It's built through confidence, self-respect, and a sense of value in yourself. When you're constantly giving without considering your own needs, you're essentially telling someone, I need you to like me because I don't fully like myself. And that's not an energy anyone finds attractive. What people respect, what makes them sit up and take notice, is someone who owns their worth without needing external confirmation. Let's flip the script. Imagine you meet someone you're incredibly drawn to. Now imagine that instead of bending to fit their world, you stand firm in your own. You say what you actually think, not what you think they want to hear. You express your standards without apology. You don't over-explain or justify yourself. You let them come to you instead of overextending to earn their time. That shift alone makes all the difference, because here's what happens when you stop seeking validation. You become the person who naturally commands it. Suddenly, you're not the one wondering, does he like me? Instead, you're observing, do I like him? That subtle but powerful shift changes the way people experience you. It moves you from a position of chasing to a position of choosing. Now, I'm not saying you should be indifferent or play mind games. This isn't about manipulation. This is about showing up as someone who values their time, their opinions, and their standards. If you feel the need to be overly nice just to keep someone interested, ask yourself, do I actually like this person, or do I just like the idea of being liked? Because there's a big difference. When you stop trying to prove your worth, you start radiating it. When you stop putting someone else's comfort above your own needs, you create a dynamic where respect and attraction can actually grow. People, especially men, are drawn to confidence, not arrogance, but that quiet, unshakable certainty that says, I know who I am, and I don't need external validation to confirm it. And here's the irony. The moment you stop needing validation is the moment you start getting it effortlessly. The person who doesn't need to prove anything is the one who holds the most influence in any dynamic. That's not just true in dating, it's true in life. So if you find yourself constantly trying to be liked, trying to be agreeable, trying to be the nice person that never ruffles feathers, stop. Instead, start being the person who owns their worth and watch how the energy shifts in your favor. If you always accommodate, always say yes, always go along with what he wants, thinking that's the way to win him over, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. Not because kindness is a weakness, but because kindness without boundaries is a fast track to being taken for granted. We've been told that being agreeable, easygoing, and low management will make us more attractive. That if we don't ask for much, if we go with the flow, if we don't create waves, then we'll be the kind of woman he wants to stay with. But what actually happens? He starts to see you as someone who's always available, always there, always bending to his needs. And when someone gets used to you being there no matter what, they stop valuing you. It's not about playing hard to get. It's about showing that you have a life, a sense of self, and a level of respect for your own time and energy. A lot of people think setting boundaries means being aggressive, being difficult, or pushing people away. That's not it. A boundary is simply saying, I respect myself enough to communicate what is and isn't okay with me. When you don't do this, you end up in situations where you feel resentful, unappreciated, and emotionally drained, all because you were afraid to say, no, that doesn't work for me. You see this all the time in dating. You're talking to someone new and they cancel plans last minute. You tell yourself, it's okay, things happen, even though it bothers you. Then it happens again and again. But instead of addressing it, you smile and pretend it's fine, hoping that by being understanding, he'll appreciate you more. But what does he actually learn? That you're okay with it, that there are no consequences to treating you as an afterthought. And suddenly, you're not a priority, you're an option. If you don't set boundaries, you're leaving it up to someone else to decide how much respect you receive. And here's the problem with that. People will always take the path of least resistance, not because they're bad, but because it's human nature. If someone can get away with putting in the bare minimum and still have you around, they will. That's why you need to teach people how to treat you. And the way you do that isn't by hoping they'll just figure it out. It's by making it clear from the start. You don't have to be mean. You don't have to argue. You just have to be direct. I don't like when plans are cancelled last minute. If you're serious about seeing me, I need more consistency. And then, this is key, you have to back it up with action. If he keeps cancelling, you don't keep making plans. If he disrespects your time, you don't reward him with more of it. If he's inconsistent, you match his energy by investing less, not to play games, but to send a message. I value myself too much to settle for this. Think about the people in your life you respect the most. I guarantee they are people with strong boundaries. You know what they will and won't tolerate. You don't take advantage of them not because they're unkind, but because they have a strong sense of self. That's what makes them magnetic. And that's what makes a woman irresistible, not just to a man, but to the world. When you start setting boundaries, something interesting happens. People who only wanted to take advantage of you will drift away. And that's a good thing. Let them go. But the right people, they will rise to meet your standards. Because when a high-value woman demands respect, the right man will be more than happy to give it. So stop worrying that saying no will scare him off. The only thing it will do is filter out the wrong ones faster, and that is exactly what you want. She sat watching the world go by. Something caught her eye. It wasn't so much its color or shape, but the way it was moving. She squinted to see if she could better understand what it was and where it was going, but it didn't help. As she continued to stare into the distance, she didn't understand why this uneasiness was building inside her body. You know what the real problem is? People think being nice is what makes someone stay. But here's the truth. Nice is forgettable. It's safe. It's comfortable. And while there's nothing wrong with being kind, there is a huge difference between being kind and being overly nice. When you're overly nice, you're not being attractive, you're being predictable. And what happens when something is predictable? It becomes boring, familiar, expected. And once that happens, the excitement disappears. The curiosity is gone, the challenge vanishes, and so does the attraction. The key is not to be mean or difficult, but to be playfully challenging. Because here's the secret. People don't fall for those who are just nice. They fall for those who bring energy, excitement, and a little bit of unpredictability into their lives. When you challenge someone in a playful way, you create tension. The good kind of tension that keeps them engaged, that keeps them on their toes, that makes them think, I can't quite figure this person out. And that's exactly where you want to be. Imagine a guy takes you out on a date and he's telling you about his latest gym routine, how much he lifts, how disciplined he is. Most people would respond with, wow, that's amazing. You're so strong. But what if instead you smirked and said, that's cute, but can you do all that and still carry 4 grocery bags in one trip? Instantly, you've turned a simple conversation into something engaging, you've made it fun, you've added a little challenge, and in that moment, he sees you as someone different, not someone who just agrees with everything he says, but someone who plays along, who keeps the energy up, who makes him want to impress you even more. Think about it. When was the last time you truly felt captivated by someone who was just nice? You don't remember those people because They didn't make an impact. What you remember are the moments where someone sparked your curiosity, where someone made you laugh, where someone didn't just hand you their approval, but made you earn it. That's what being playfully challenging does. It makes people want to step up, to show up, to keep coming back for more. Now, some people hear this and think, but I don't want to play games. And that's the mistake. This isn't about games. It's about chemistry. It's about showing up as someone who isn't just there to please, but someone who has her own energy, her own presence, her own spark. Because the moment you start adapting yourself just to keep someone happy, you're no longer being you, you're being what you think they want, and that is never attractive. Here's what happens when you bring a little playful challenge into your interactions. First, you immediately stand out. When everyone else is nodding and agreeing, you're making them think. Second, you create a dynamic where the other person actually has to put in effort. And effort is the foundation of attraction. The more someone feels like they have to earn your attention, the more they value it. And third, you become the kind of person who makes every interaction feel like a little adventure. Not just a conversation, but an experience. The best relationships aren't built on politeness, they're built on connection. And connection doesn't happen when you're constantly saying yes and playing it safe. It happens when there's tension, when there's laughter, when there's a feeling of, what's this person going to say next? That's what keeps things alive. That's what keeps attraction growing. So stop thinking that being nice is what's going to get you the relationship you want. Stop believing that if you agree with everything he says, he's going to wake up one day and realize you're the one. That's not how it works. You don't want to be the woman he forgets about. You want to be the woman who keeps him coming back. And that doesn't happen by being nice. It happens by being unforgettable. Think about how much energy you give to people who don't give it back. How many times have you overextended yourself trying to prove your worth to someone who is only half invested? How many times have you made excuses for someone who isn't prioritizing you? It's an exhausting game. And worst of all, it's one you'll never win. Because when you give everything to someone who isn't reciprocating, you don't look valuable, you look desperate. And here's the truth. The people who are worth your time will never need convincing. They will never make you feel like you're constantly chasing their attention, their effort, or their love. The second you start to notice that you are the one always initiating, always planning, always trying to bridge the gap, that's the moment you need to stop and reassess. Because this isn't about whether they like you enough. It's about whether they respect and value you enough to show up the way you deserve. We tend to get caught up in this idea that if we just show them how good we are, how caring, how loving, how supportive, then they'll wake up one day and say, wow, I should appreciate this more. But that's not how attraction works. That's not how respect is built. If someone is only half invested and you keep over-delivering, all you're teaching them is that they don't need to step up because you'll do it all for them. They don't need to call because you'll be the one reaching out. They don't need to make plans because you'll always be there, waiting, available. You become a safety net instead of a priority. Now, let's flip this dynamic. Imagine for a moment that instead of investing in people who aren't showing up for you, you only gave your time and energy to those who matched your effort. Imagine what it would feel like to be met with the same level of enthusiasm, interest, and commitment that you bring to the table. Imagine what it would feel like to know that when you step back, the other person steps forward, not disappears. That's what high-value people do. They don't convince, they don't beg, they don't lower their standards to accommodate someone's bare minimum. They recognize the imbalance early and they act accordingly. And the way you act accordingly is by matching effort. If he texts you sporadically, stop being the one who always follows up. If he only makes last-minute plans, stop saying yes every time. If he takes you for granted, show him what it feels like when you're no longer an option on his terms. Not in a game-playing, manipulative way, but in a self-respecting, confident way that says, I invest in those who invest in me. Now, some of you might be thinking, but what if he's just busy? What if he doesn't realize? What if he just needs a little more time? And to that I say, stop making excuses for people's lack of effort. Busy people make time for what they care about. Confused people figure it out when they want to. And if someone truly values you, they won't need repeated reminders to treat you right. We have to stop clinging to potential. Potential is a dangerous thing to invest in because it's not real. It's just a version of someone that exists in your head, not in reality. The only thing that matters is how someone is showing up right now, not who they could be, not who they might become if they just realized what they had, who they are today. And here's where this gets even more powerful. When you stop over-investing in people who are under-invested in you, you create space for the right people to come in. You create space for relationships that are balanced, fulfilling, and healthy. Because every time you hold on to the wrong person, you delay meeting the right one. So the next time you find yourself over-explaining, over-giving, or over-accommodating, take a step back. Ask yourself, is this effort being matched? Or am I just afraid of losing something that was never really mine to begin with? And if the answer is the latter, it's time to redirect that energy back to yourself. The moment you stop proving your worth and start expecting mutual effort is the moment everything changes. The right people won't need to be convinced. They'll just show up. Stop worrying about scaring him off. That fear, that hesitation, it's exactly what keeps you stuck in situations where you're not getting what you want. How many times have you held back, swallowed your words, or downplayed what you truly felt just to avoid rocking the boat? You didn't want to seem too demanding, too intense, too much. So instead, you stayed quiet. You convinced yourself, maybe if I'm patient, if I just wait a little longer, he'll come around. But let me ask you something. Has waiting ever made a man suddenly wake up and treat you better? Has silence ever translated into respect? No. What it does is teach him that he never has to step up because you won't say anything. You won't challenge him. You won't risk losing him. And that's the biggest mistake you can make. The irony is the very thing you fear, losing him, is already happening the moment you start playing small. When you stop voicing what you need, when you settle for crumbs and call it a meal, you're slowly fading into the background of his life. And then one day you wake up and realize you've molded yourself into someone you don't even recognize. Someone who says, I don't need much. I'm easygoing, whatever works for you. But deep down, you do need something. You do have wants. You do have standards. You're just not saying them out loud. So let's flip the script. Instead of being afraid to lose him, be afraid to lose yourself. Be afraid of the time wasted, the energy spent on someone who was never truly meeting you at your level. Be afraid of looking back and realizing you never asked for what you deserved because you thought it would push him away. Here's the truth. If stating your needs makes him pull back, good. Let him go. That's not a loss. That's a win. Because the right man, the one who's actually worth your time, won't be scared off by your standards. He won't run when you say, this is what I need in a relationship. He won't disappear when you show him that you know your worth. He'll rise to meet you. But he can only rise to meet you if he knows where you stand. If you're unclear, if you're always bending, shifting, accommodating, then he doesn't see a woman with a strong presence. He sees a woman who will settle. And the second he knows you'll settle, he stops trying. He stops pursuing, stops appreciating, stops valuing you. You've seen it happen. In the beginning, he was making an effort. He was thoughtful. He was present. He wanted to impress you. And then somewhere along the way, the dynamic shifted. He got comfortable and you let things slide. You told yourself, it's fine. He's just busy. He's just stressed. I don't want to pressure him. But deep down, you felt it, that slow erosion of effort. The unanswered texts that used to come instantly, the dates that turned into last-minute plans, the energy that once pulled you in, now barely holding on. And what did you do? You tried to make up for it. You became more available, more understanding, more accommodating. You put in extra effort, thinking it would balance things out. But it never does it? Because attraction doesn't work that way. You can't overcompensate for his lack of effort by giving more. That's not how you create desire. That's how you train him to do less. If he's interested, he'll show you. If he values you, he'll make it known. And if he doesn't, if you're constantly left wondering, analyzing, making excuses for him, then he's already made his choice. You're just refusing to accept it. So stop fearing the wrong thing. Stop fearing that asking for what you want will push him away. Instead, fear what happens if you don't. Fear waking up one day and realizing you've spent months, maybe even years, waiting for someone to treat you right when you could have been with someone who already knew how. The right man won't need convincing. He won't need testing. He won't need you to prove why he should treat you well. He'll do it because he wants to. And if that's not him, then you walking away is not a loss. It's a lesson for him and a win for you. A high-value woman doesn't rely on being nice to be loved. She isn't trying to impress by being agreeable, by always saying yes, by overgiving, or by suppressing her own needs just to make someone else happy. She operates from a place of deep self-respect, and that's what makes her magnetic. When you truly understand your worth, you stop chasing. You stop trying to earn someone's love like it's a prize for good behavior. You realize that love isn't about proving you're worthy. It's about recognizing the right fit, and that requires knowing who you are and standing firm in it. When a man meets a woman who has this level of self-respect, he senses it immediately. It's in the way she holds herself, in the way she speaks, in the way she doesn't anxiously fill every silence with words just to maintain his attention. She doesn't try to be everything he wants just to keep him interested. She isn't afraid to voice her opinions, even if they're different from his. She challenges, she teases, she engages, but never at the cost of her own authenticity. That's what makes her unforgettable. Too often I see amazing women lowering their standards because they think that's what it takes to keep a man. They accommodate, they compromise in ways that leave them feeling empty. They stay silent when they should speak up. And what happens? They become easy to take for granted. The more you shrink yourself to fit into someone else's life, the less they value you. The truth is, attraction isn't about how much you do for someone. It's about the energy you bring into the dynamic. A high-value woman isn't trying to win someone over. She shows up fully as herself, and she expects that same level of investment in return. This isn't about playing games. It's not about pretending to be aloof or uninterested. It's about knowing that your time, energy, and love are precious. A woman with this mindset doesn't wait by the phone, she doesn't tolerate inconsistency, and she doesn't waste her time with someone who isn't showing up for her in the way she deserves. If he's interested, he'll show it. And if he's not, she's already moving on because she understands that the right man will never make her feel like she has to prove her worth. Men are naturally drawn to a woman who values herself. It's not because she's playing hard to get. It's because she genuinely has a life that she loves, standards she upholds, and a sense of self that isn't dependent on whether or not someone chooses her. She's not afraid to say no. She's not afraid to walk away if something isn't serving her. And that energy, that confidence, creates an irresistible pull. It tells a man, I choose to be here, but I don't need to be here. And when a man knows that he has to show up in a meaningful way to be part of her life, that's when he steps up. So many women believe that being nice is their biggest asset. But let me tell you something. Niceness without boundaries is not kindness. It's self-sacrifice. And when you make yourself smaller just to make someone else comfortable, you send the message that you don't see your own worth. But when you carry yourself as someone who has something valuable to offer, not just in a relationship, but in life, you change the game. You stop attracting men who only take, and you start attracting men who recognize and appreciate what you bring to the table. If you want to be truly magnetic, stop trying to be liked and start being respected. Stop saying yes to things that don't align with you. Stop tolerating mixed signals. Stop playing small. The woman who isn't afraid to show up as herself, boldly, confidently, unapologetically, that's the woman who commands presence. That's the woman who isn't forgotten. That's the woman who gets the kind of love that's built on something real. And that's exactly who you have the power to be.